Okay. First of all, thank you for the four people who watched the Relativity Part 17. Now let's get into this video where I'm gonna scream!
This gum can actually get inside your teeth and remineralize the
Hello and welcome to Science Me, where I talk about science and opinions on things sciencey. This is a Kurzgesagt video. Clearly. And no comments placed yet. We'll get there. Just me.
The heat death of the universe. One day, the last star will die, galaxies will dissolve, and black holes.
Okay, first of all, we're talking about a time span that's in the quadrillions. And I'm not going to assume that we're not going to spread out and have as much of, if not, like, every galaxy that we could ever reach, so that it doesn't... This entire thing is making a lot of assumptions here. And it's already woefully, like, completely inaccurate to what would actually happen. So let's move on.
Will evaporate. The cosmos will become a forever expanding, empty void where nothing happens. Forever. A place without life, purpose, or meaning. Lame and depressing. But there might be a loophole in the laws of physics for a future civilization to survive the death of everything and go on having fun and internet arguments for Googles of years, maybe even forever. To explain how this works, we need to go through a few steps, so strap in if you want consciousness to live forever. How to outlast the stars. Let's travel 100 trillion years into the future when the last stars are about to die and the cosmos starts turning dark forever.
If we do nothing. Honey, there's no way a civilization 1,000 years from now will not have the ability to do something. We're talking about over billions and trillions of years in the future. Easily, we will have these solutions. But you're talking about quadrillions of years in the future without those solutions. Extremely pessimistic view right now, just so you know.
Here in this dying universe, we find the Noxans, the last civilization still alive. Compared to them, we're cave dwellers. They've solved physics and can do things we can only dream of. Still, the same rules of reality apply to them as to us.
And yet, your brain didn't think of what they would be doing with a galaxy.
The Noxans like being alive and don't want to vanish with the last stars. So, they're enacting the plan to keep consciousness around forever. The first issue is...
This is entirely irrelevant and not necessary and will never become necessary. Also, I'll never do it, so...
Energy. If you want to keep a civilization running, you need a lot of it. But actually, not that much in cosmic terms. With 5 hours of the full energy emitted by the sun, we could power present-day humanity for about 10 billion years. So the Noxans harvest the last stars and build a gigantic complex of batteries around their home star. In principle, this energy could keep them alive for a few 100 trillion years, a long time, but not even close to forever. So now the hard part of the plan begins. The Noxans...
Good luck making a battery that's better than lithium-ion, or whatever the hell we end up making, and ends up being able to hold that kind of power without also being the size of the solar system.
Need to change the nature of life itself. Thoughts cold as ice. Being alive means doing things, eating, playing video games, and very importantly, thinking. And each of those things costs energy. But how much energy? There's an idea from a famous paper we'll mercilessly simplify and call Dyson's cold thoughts. In a nutshell, the idea is that the lower your temperature, the less energy it takes to do something. Your brain runs at a temperature of 310 degrees above absolute zero. Zero is the temperature where nothing can happen anymore. At 310 degrees, your brain needs 20 joules of energy to think a simple thought that takes 1 second to think, like, I should wear a funny hat. If your brain worked at colder temperatures, say 155 Kelvin instead of 310, a few things would change. First of all, you'd think at half the speed, and the same thought would now take 2 seconds. But in return, the energy you'd need to think the thought now halves from 20 joules to only 10.
That has to do with the physical properties of materials within the whole processes of your mind and the interactions therein, and their abilities to react. However,
if Dyson's cold thoughts are correct, then the colder you go, the less energy you need to think a thought. At 1/10 your current temperature, the same thought would take 10 seconds, but only require 2 joules. And this has wild implications, because it means that we actually might be able to play this game forever. How could this work in reality? Cooling down a living organism
it has a limit.
isn't easy. If we put you in a fridge, you'll die from hypothermia. The reality is that this plan will be impossible to do with flesh and blood, so the Noxons have to take a huge step.
I will get back to you. Back.
Is that this plan will be impossible to do with flesh and blood, so the Noxons have to take a huge step. Before we cool anything down, consider this. Maybe the real trick is stepping back and seeing ideas from different perspectives. Because even with more efficient brains, we're still prone to the same biases we face today. Nothing highlights this issue more than our modern media landscape. Thankfully, Ground News, the sponsor of this video story, they gather how bias affects, and Ground News using this link supports our channel and helps to some kind of artificial brain. Or even better.
No. Let me explain. Any artificial brain that has a copy of your consciousness is a copy. It's not you. Transferring yourself from a regular brain into an artificial brain, like bit by bit with all your brain stuff, there's ideas towards making that possibly work. But it then ends up still only being a simulation of you, and
become completely virtual minds and build a digital world as good or better than the real one. This is getting pretty sci-fi, so to be fair, we don't know how to build such brains or computers. But remember, we are 100 trillion years in the future, the Noxons are desperate, and the laws of physics should allow this. So now, we have a pretty big battery with a huge but finite amount of energy, and a lot of brains or a computer that can cool down. Okay, this is great and all, but how do you stay around with limited energy forever? Well, this is at the core of the plan. Each time the Noxons get colder, they need less energy to stay alive. Sure, they'll be slower, but this isn't relevant to them. So from the Noxons' perspective, as long as they can keep getting colder fast enough, their battery's energy is growing proportionally and could keep them alive forever. Let's see how their plan unfolds. Cooling down.
First of all, you would automatically just transition yourself as fast as you could to the fastest amount of, like, the most energy efficient state possible, which means that your existence would, again, cease to have any influence over the universe whatsoever.
As the last star in the universe goes out and the universe turns dark forever, the Noxons activate their batteries and start cooling down their brains. The way they do it is extremely simple. How do you cool down a light bulb? Well, you unplug it so it can radiate away its heat. So the Noxons switch off their brains and start to hibernate. They enter a state with no activity, thoughts, or even dreams, and let their bodies radiate heat away to cool down a bit. When they activate again after some time, they're now colder than before. They think slower, and each thought uses up less energy from their battery.
It's not how it works. You start up something, it will still start radiating the same amount of limited base energy, and you can't get lower than that. So after you do this once, you're already at the peak. You cannot increase from there.
They enter into a new cycle of cosmic days and cosmic nights. During the days, they're alive and awake, doing all the stuff they want to do, hanging out with friends, thinking about things, eating virtual cheeseburgers, simulating universes, whatever Type 3 civilizations think fun is in the future. And during the night, they're switched off, lost in dreamless non-existence, not even noticing anything isn't happening while cooling down their brains even more. At the beginning, the nights will be very short and the days extremely long. A day can last 1,000,000 years, while night is only a few hours. But warm things shed heat much faster than cold ones. Cooling from 300 to 299 degrees takes much less time than going from 100 to 99.
You don't understand. The objects, once they have turned off first time, even in a simulation body. Okay, if you say, take me out of the equation and say programs, okay, let's say you have a system that turns off. Well, that system, the moment it turns back on again, will need a certain amount of energy to do anything. Even with a light speed photonic type chip that we're thinking about and have worked on and have made, just not in mass produced just yet, these tiny little things which can have multispectral frequency analyzation and transmission and transformation. Like, you can have all these different programs happen simultaneously, so you have like super fast processing, which is great. All of that stuff, even with light moving around, is going to generate heat. There is no way to go any lower than that. The fact that you're saying you could possibly go lower after subsequent restarts is silly. The first restart has you go down to 0. Nothing's used, nothing is emitted whatsoever. The moment you restart, you warm up again. Immediately.
As the Noxon brains become colder, the nights will have to grow longer and longer. So how long could they actually do this? And how is this a way to live forever? How long could the Noxons actually do this? The reason Dyson's cold thoughts are so incredibly powerful is how incredibly they scale. As eons pass in the dying universe, the Noxons keep cooling down and waking up.
Sorry, I like you, but
and waking up. After 100 trillion years of this cycle, their temperature has only dropped 230 degrees above absolute zero. A simple thought now takes 1.3 seconds instead of 1. Each cosmic night is now 400,000 years long. But even accounting for their slower speeds and long hibernations, the Noxons have experienced the equivalent of 76 trillion years of life. Over 5,000 times the age of the current universe. This is frankly just an unsettling idea. What is way scarier than being dead? Being alive forever. So we need to detach ourselves a little.
Here's the problem, right? It doesn't scale down to that kind of low temperature, actually. Not even close. And never could. And two, still just a copy, still not a real person, still not alive. No copy is alive. It's just a copy. And you don't want to stop. You want to have a normal life. Even if you want to exist, you want to exist using as much as you possibly could. So this is the opposite of that, where you're doing as little as possible. So let's say any other civilization were to exist, it would overcome you. Problems like, oh, there's something that needs to be addressed with, I don't know, asteroids or something. Maybe not, but whatever. It needs to be handled, and you need people who are able to quickly think. And who's going to be on that fast track while all the rest of you are on the slow track?
But we simply have no concept how conscious beings would deal with the opportunity to actually live that long. Maybe our Noxans delete their memories regularly, maybe they create new worlds and new life, maybe at some point they decide to sleep forever. Maybe they just activate their pleasure centers and experience perfect bliss forever. As time keeps passing and the Noxans keep going through...
You don't understand how the pleasure centers work. There's chemicals and everything else, interactions, stuff on, the orders of magnitude of a plant doing photosynthesis and all of its different chemical interactions that a plant does, you're doing. And again, that's an experience that doesn't happen over a long period of time. It is a fleeting thing and a prolonged over a certain period of time thing, but it's not a prolonged over an extreme period of time thing. It wouldn't register the same. You would get numb to it or something. There's a lot of other things that, yeah, you could simulate a lot of it. And if you would, then maybe you do. But again, if it becomes the norm, then your body adjusts. A normal body adjusts. In this perfect body or brain, that it's just a brain. Again, you don't have to have just a brain. You could have a body that is able to interact and do things with physics on a regular scale and level and everything. But
through their cycle of day and night and cooling down, the universe keeps dying. After quadrillions of years, the corpses of former stars, white dwarfs, turn yellow, then orange, then red, then black. Trillions of years later, all galaxies have dissolved like dandelions. Decillions of years later, the first black holes evaporate in bursts of light like sad fireworks. And the Noxans, they're still around, at a chilling 10 quintillionth degree above zero. They've become so slow that a simple thought takes 1 trillion years. They spend 90...
No. Let's please not be silly about this. Your attitudes of scale pale in comparison to actual physics. This is not possible. What you're talking about. Having a thought at the speed of tiny, chilled fragments, only moving a little bit and whatever else. There's a lot of other things that take place that make this not possible. It makes it not coherent. It makes it not actually interact with anything. Like, there's a reason ice crystals form. There's a reason why cold superconductors have a certain direct, only one way that their energy flows, and they're stuck in that point. And nothing else happens unless you push with force from a thing. Stuff tends to become, at lower and lower temperatures, less interactive and more stagnant. But they don't want to stay that way. Just being an atom wants to do things that make heat. It takes effort to make something that cold. You don't just get that cold and stay that cold. The coldness of space isn't enough to stay that cold. You have to put energy in order to be that cold. Cryo is not something that takes less energy than staying alive. It takes way more energy to be in cryo this deep than it does to actually just stay alive. I'm not even pulling that out of mass, it just does. You know that trying to freeze something has taken a lot of energy. Entire infrastructure in a laboratory doesn't do this on scale because it's not a cheap thing to do. Right? It is much simpler to stay at the normal energy scales, the normal ways that actual physics and regular particles like to interact, because that is actually efficient. It's really silly to think that you could ever achieve this without using more power. It's more silly that you would ever be able to achieve near 0 Kelvin. Anywhere between 1 and 0 Kelvin, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction and all of that, and have some amount of actual processing that can take place whatsoever. I know we're talking about quantum computers and their abilities with stuff. Again, you're putting energy into that system to make them able to do that. You're still taking normal heat and pulling it out of that area. Because left on its own, it will heat up. It will naturally just heat up. This is... Even floating in the dead of space, no stars, nothing, you will still have more heat than you will have 0 Kelvin. A dead body will have more heat than 0 Kelvin. Rocks have more heat than 0 Kelvin. Rocks!
9.99999999999999997% of the time hibernating. But for them, nothing's changed. Their conscious experience is just as fluid and vibrant as on the first day. From the outside, they live in slow.
I have a thought, and I want to talk to someone else. Oh yeah, the lag's gonna be another 100 million years before my thought is iterated to you. We went from going as fast as the speed of light, which is what the supercomputers are meant to be able to do, at this stage of the development, and we're slowing it down to now we're not having thoughts as fast as the speed of light. That's contradictory. You can't have it both ways. It doesn't work that way.
Motion. As they get colder and colder, their thoughts got slower and slower. But if you and the world around you slow down at the same pace, you don't notice anything. Your conversations, thoughts, adventures, and experiences feel exactly the same as before. And while the cosmic nights are now a quarter or decillion years long, it doesn't matter to them.
It's like the idea of, are we in a simulation? And what would it take to simulate that? Well, in this kind of simulation, it takes forever to simulate a day, and we literally take forever to simulate a day. And it doesn't violate the laws of physics. However, on an upper scale civilization, our laws of physics don't even need to apply. So we could have an upper scale that has the laws of physics where everything, including light and whatever else, can go way faster than the speed of light, because it's the scale of the universe that is on the upper side of things, like how we don't simulate everything in Minecraft, but the regular universe is way more vibrant and has way more stuff in it. Particles and everything. So the thing is, for someone to simulate us, think of us as Minecraft, their universe is a whole other echelon above, with speeds that we don't comprehend, but we can imagine. Okay, whatever. But the point is irrelevant. But with this, we're talking about everything is possible going slower. Again, a cryo-cooled supercomputer goes faster. So we're not having slow thoughts. We're having better thoughts than we have now for longer time in our cryo body, if we can even manage that. You're not even thinking of how the recent science works, today's science works, much less thousands of years in the future, trillions of years in the future. You haven't scratched the surface of what's possible, much less the fact that we won't lose stars. We will rekindle. We will take out the heavy stuff, put in the light stuff, and make it so that they're rejuvenated up to another billions of years of time. And we will use the heavy stuff for our own purposes and reconstitute it back into tiny stuff in fission reactors that will allow us to make literally all the stuff that the sun's been working hard to fuse back into smaller stuff, and the energy reverse process will power us way more than any of this crap. All we have to do is pull the iron out, put in the hydrogen, and bada boom. Yeah, it would take like a lot to do that. I don't care. At these time scales, you're talking about, trillions of years. Yeah, no, we figured that out, and we're capable of doing it in less than 1,000 years. Trillions of years, you're not even close to what we're capable of. So desperate? No, we're not there. Nowhere near desperate. Googles of years at regular temperatures. That's an actual smart civilization. This is not even 90s thinking. This is like 1500s thinking. Is what made this video. It's so far back, we're not even at the point of today coming up with these kinds of ideas.
Because during the night, the Noxons don't experience anything. So, no matter how long the nights are, they pass in an instant. The Noxons experience a perfectly fluid existence. Only that with each night, they use up even less energy than before. At this point, they've lived, felt, and experienced the equivalent of 4,000 trillion years. Their battery has only a tiny fraction of its original charge, but the Noxons now need so little energy that it seems larger than ever before. True eternity has just begun. Sometime. Just begun. Or has it? Can the Noxons actually live forever? Whether Dyson's cold thoughts can make you live forever depends on one thing. Can you keep cooling forever, or does the universe force you to hit a true limit? There are a few problems. Dark energy might eventually make the universe hit a temperature limit of 1/millionth degrees above absolute zero. The Noxons will cool to that level after a Google years, but then they can't cool it.
You would cool to the lowest that you can get the first time just by using cryo to pull yourself down to that temperature. No other effort is required. You would be at that point from the beginning of the first cooling cycle, and there is nothing else that you need to think of. Only question is, how?
Any further, and their battery will begin to run out. And after this much time, the universe will make going on impossible in other weird ways. Quantum noise might just destroy their brains. All matter may decay into iron, or proton decay may destroy all atoms. We don't know. Forever is a long time. But even if the Noxons don't get a true...
I would literally just relight the stars. Not only that, I've talked about it before. I've heard of an experiment where they mentioned if you separate quarks, you can then make more quarks. So then, if you were to separate two quarks, the individuals spontaneously form new pairs. So you now have 4 of them where you started with 2. You can just repeat that and make print matter from the substrate matter that is in the universe and not interacting with anything. There's a limit to it, obviously, per cubic meter, but you could extract new matter all the time. There's obviously some kind of ramifications for that, because there has to be something in the ether for you to be extracting from. Well, yeah. But let's face it, there's all sorts of recombining and stuff that we can do to make it so that stuff will last
forever. If Dyson's cold thoughts work, then within these Google years, their consciousness would experience the equivalent of 2 trillion years. This male...
Again, you would be smart to have the number of the trillion next to the Google, because guess how many zeros are in a trillion? Million, billion, trillion. Trillion. Oh wait, that's a Google. You just said the same thing twice. Are you kidding me? Or am I stupid? I'm not stupid. That is literally a trillion. That's a Google. Yeah,
seem far-fetched and hard to imagine, but the amazing thing about it is that for all we know, the laws of physics don't forbid life to adapt even to a completely dead universe, and it would mean that life and consciousness aren't a brief accident in cosmic history, but the final chapter of existence itself, giving the universe meaning, purpose, and hope. Maybe forever.
Okay. 1. You're not putting me in no brain like that. That's a copy. I will still exist. It doesn't work that way. 2. Slowing everything down costs energy. So don't say it doesn't. 3. There's a lot more potentials that you can do with all the energies and whatever else stuff and whatever else. So it's kind of irrelevant that you would ever do something like this. Can't believe you ever even thought about this. And like, it's okay to think of ideas as just this one idea if this is the only thing you can actually conceivably do. Throw everything out the window. It's already been considered, thought of, done, and everything else, and now you're at the very edge at the end. Yeah, this thing, standalone project, okay, fine. Still, it's gonna take more energy to cool you than it literally. In order to cool a Bose-Einstein condensate, it takes magnets and electromagnetism and different certain energy waves to stop a particle from moving. It reaches near zero. We've stuck a photon inside of one of these things. Making something out of that goo is like assuming that you're going to be running this device capable of making the goo a goo. At that point, stuff doesn't even like to move. It doesn't like to interact. It doesn't do anything to interact. So a lot of things that are complex, like a brain and whatever else, doesn't happen. We've already reached Bose-Einstein condensate levels. You could have said those words. You didn't say it in this video, and I don't like that. You didn't say what it would take to power all of those things. And you said a trillion by saying a Google, and then you compared it to a trillion, which is a Google. Or is it? Okay, technically, a Google is 10 zeros, or 100. Isn't a Google? Yeah, Google's 100 zeros. Scroll back. What the fuck? This number three 12 times 3 is 36. This has 36 zeros. So you went from a wait. I was like, oh, this number is the same as that number. Now I remembered the definition of a freaking Google. Huh? In this. Essentially, you experienced 1 second for every 3 seconds. Because every bit of time, it was 3 times as long in order to calculate it. Again, a slow move, a cold supercomputer is faster than a regular brain. Regular computers. So regular quantum computers, if that's the size of the power of our brain, again, you're using more power in order to get it to that cold, and 2, it wouldn't be slow. And why would you want to go even colder? You wouldn't get any more speed out of it. You wouldn't get any more efficiency out of it. You'd just be putting in more and more power. Not less. Not actually less. You'd be utilizing less, but you'd have to use more in order to get to there in the first place. I don't like this. I want to bitch slap him. Dude. I'm not saying computer because that's too long. Fuck you. I am bold to say that it would be a copy because there is a potential that you could make a kind of computer brain that is not a copy that is able to use something like this. But again, you're expending energy to get colder. You are not taking less energy to get colder. That's not how physics works, even in the basic sense. And yeah, if you could make a system that, whatever, no, none of this. And also, refuel your sun. If you found this at all fascinating, I mean, I love the idea of it, and I'm saying, one, no, doesn't work that way. Two, it would never result to that, and even if it did, it's not a good idea to go that cold. You don't need to go that cold. I haven't been. I ran into this video randomly. I have been holding on to it for a couple days. I have not watched it ahead of time. I hate this. Because you're ignoring regular physics. You're ignoring a lot of things. Let's see how the comments look. This video's got much better and keep on can't be compared to me. I'm much better. What? Who the what? Videos post. I post a much better Kirk's house videos. You can't be compared. What the hell is this? Hold on. Warning: content of these videos are adults only. Don't understand how YouTube is allowed to publish these videos that contain adult content. It's called, you can have it adult rated. And I will go there on my own time, thanks. Also, Kurzgesagt reacted to this, which blows my mind. He doesn't react to me. Shut up. What are you talking? What do you mean you reacted to this comment? That's beneath you. What the hell? Where's your comment, bro? Brother. Our secret has been revealed. Just going along with it. Oh yeah. Yeah, we suck compared to your stuff. Uh-huh. For sure. Sarcasm at its finest. The sarcasm is strong with this one. Oh my god. Noxon sounds like they're nicer than Smorfians. Ah, that's cute. You didn't respond to that? It's a response to your older video, I think. Always at your service. Yeah, versus I bitch slap the shit out of you and I don't care because I'm sorry you're wrong. On so many counts, you are wrong. I haven't even looked at the other... Hold on. No problem with the idea is it might need energy for the other things that keep stimulating our minds. Keep fixing the whole machine? Yeah. Smart person here. I like that. The neat quirk of showing the thought process of civilization is that would shrink the distance is in a way that it might be a few dozen light years to signal a nearby star. And I don't understand what you're talking about. I mean, if you only have to wait because you took a nap and then you got the response from a nearby star, sure, it looks like the distances are strong. That doesn't mean they are. I could go there and play with that person on their console. Defined as thermodynamic equilibrium everywhere, it is more exciting at this point of the heat depth of the universe not surviving past it. It's more like extending the heat depth of the universe, not extending past, not surviving past it. I mean, yeah, you can extract energy from a battery if the thermodynamic equilibrium. That's incorrect. Springs. All I need to say is springs, and I have overcome your entire heat depth equivalence thing, because a spring, as you know, as it gets colder, could end up more and more tight. Or more and more loose, depending on its format. So literally, you can make a battery that has that ability to reset itself, and then it takes like no time at all, and it's reset. And then it doesn't take much energy, like in that Veritasium video about the weird spring thing that they did. It's infinite energy. I'm not even over-exaggerating. That is infinite energy. You can just make an infinite power thing out of that, because it takes a certain amount of force to pull it down, and it takes less force to pull it up. Let that go through your head. Go look up Veritasium, find the spring that can be reset easily, or whatever the fuck it is. And yeah, that thing's infinite energy. I'm supposed to go to D&D soon. Yes, you are minimalistic lifestyle. Nope. Hoping the crazy theory one day will make perpetual motion machine. We just gotta think slow. The perpetual motion machine doesn't need to be slow. You're made of perpetual motion. All of your atoms are just doing their thing with the electrons cycling at crazy speeds, constantly, never slowing down. Guess why? Because of their interaction with the electromagnetic field. And that will never stop. And it hasn't stopped for billions of years. It will not stop. You're made of perpetual motion. Remember that. I mean, except for decays, which, let's just face it, a decaying atom is going to stop at some point, meet equilibrium, and then do its normal atomic particle thing instead of its radioactive particle atomic thing. As I said, you should have put the number Google next to this number, which is a trillion. Whatever. I'm still upset with you. Goodbye. Thanks for hanging out with me. I like it when you do. I'll see you in the next video. Again, don't sign up for this. It's a scam. Just kidding. No one's gonna be. People are signing up for cryostasis. And don't sign up for that either. For the same reasons that he's talking about you're gonna